my denomination, the Presbyterian Church USA.
If ordained, would you allow a minor to view the PCUSA's videos on queer sex?
Of course not. And I don't see how this is relevant to the topic we're discussing.
Would you advise a minor to attend the PCUSA's LGBTQ plus camp?
Hey there guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Zack if you're new here. Today we're going to be talking about Redeemed Zoomer again, and I feel like I didn't provide the necessary background information in the last video, so when we talk about Redeemed Zoomer, we're talking about a 22-year-old Christian YouTuber with over 500,000 subscribers. And Redeemed Zoomer has quickly built himself a reputation as a Christian who attacks other Christians, and this is not a good thing. Okay, now I get blamed for attacking other Christians because I expose false teachers and false doctrines, and you're always going to get the people who comment who don't understand what you're doing and think you're just attacking everyone. But I'm not, okay? And in this video, I'll be defending non-denominationals, evangelicals, and all sorts of other Protestant Christians from Redeemed Zoomer.
By evangelicals, I mean like non-denominationals and other groups like Calvary Chapel and Pentecostals. There's no good reason to group them in with Protestants.
Zoomer looks really angry about it too, doesn't he? Like, there's no good reason to classify them with Protestants. Well, they've always been classified as Protestants. Evangelicals are evangelical Protestants.
But in America, evangelical Protestantism has overtaken mainline Protestantism. And that's what I'm trying to fix.
And Redeemed Zoomer is now in the middle of a project called the Reconquista, where he's trying to take back over the liberal mainline denominations. Well, that would be all well and good. If he just wants to do that and stop attacking other Christians, I will leave Redeemed Zoomer alone. But so long as he is encouraging good, faithful Christians to leave their Bible-believing churches and join the liberal PCUSA, Redeemed Zoomer is clearly in sin, and in my opinion, he is leading other Christians into sin. And to be honest, guys, I'm just as concerned about Redeemed Zoomer as I am with any false teacher or false prophet out there right now. So with that said, we're going to jump right back into the interview where Redeemed Zoomer was talking to the Catholic apologist Iron Inquisitor. This should provide some background information and show you the insane logic of Redeemed Zoomer at the same time.
So I did quit Protestant apologetics because I wanted to focus more on church unity. And I wanted to focus on the main reason why my channel exists, which is to help fix my denomination, the Presbyterian Church USA. It's the mainstream historic Presbyterian denomination in America, and it's been hijacked by liberals who don't agree with traditional Presbyterian beliefs. So I thought I should really clean up my own house before attacking other people's houses.
Well, that would be great if Redeemed Zoomer actually did that. Unfortunately, he's not. Okay, so yes, he's correct that the PCUSA, his denomination, has been completely hijacked by liberals, Marxists, and the rest. And we're going to look at exactly how bad it has become. But notice that Redeemed Zoomer said that he should really fix his own denomination before he attacks other people. I agree with that wholeheartedly. The problem is, Redeemed Zoomer then followed it up by saying this.
I'm pulling up some of your tweets. I'm on your Twitter right now. We'll just have them on screen. So you have pretty savagely attacked non-denominationalism as a whole.
Yes, and I don't feel bad about it.
All right.
So can Redeemed Zoomer hear the things that are coming out of his own mouth?
I should really clean up my own house before attacking other people's houses.
You have pretty savagely attacked non-denominationalism as a whole.
Yes, and I don't feel bad about it.
All right.
So this is the guy we're working with. In fact, let's hear some of Zoomer's arguments against non-denominationals, and then we'll look at exactly how heretical Zoomer's denomination really is.
But recently I realized, you know, nobody is really doing classical Protestant apologetics. All the Protestant apologists are people that I would not consider Protestant, mainly evangelicals and non-denominationals, who John Calvin would have excommunicated for their beliefs.
You may have also noticed the pride of Redeemed Zoomer. He felt that there were no other Protestant apologists. So I guess James White's not a Protestant, Gavin Ortlund, not a Protestant, according to Redeemed Zoomer. Calvin would have excommunicated them, and therefore they're not real Protestants, according to Zoomer. But we're going to find out that Redeemed Zoomer can't pass his own ridiculous Protestant litmus tests, which he likes to create as stumbling blocks for other believers.
Non-denominationalism did not come from the Reformation. All of the reformers would have condemned them for not submitting to a church magisterium.
Guess what, Redeem Zoomer? Calvin and the other reformers may have kicked out the non-denominationals for not submitting to a magisterium, but they would have also kicked you out for submitting to your magisterium, because your magisterium is completely heretical.
I would say having some succession to the Reformation is necessary but not sufficient for being Protestant. So it is necessary to have your church being traced back to the Reformation to be Protestant, but if it profoundly departs from Protestant beliefs, which all the restorationist groups like Calvary Chapel do, we would say they have fallen away from core Protestant doctrines.
And Redeemed Zoomer's church has also fallen away from core Protestant doctrines, as we're going to see right now. You see, Redeemed Zoomer recently bit off way more than he could chew in a debate with Matthew Everhard. Matthew Everhard is a PCA pastor. He is also a Presbyterian, but he's not a member of Zoomer's PCUSA, the liberal mainline Presbyterian denomination. Here's the line of questioning in the debate where Matthew Everhard really cornered Redeemed Zoomer on this topic.
When a court of the church acts, it acts as the church. Is that correct?
Yes.
The Permanent Judicial Commission, the PJC, is analogous to the Supreme Court of the PCUSA. Is that correct?
In some sense. It is, the General Assembly itself has divine authority, and the judicial courts only have human authority. So the judicial courts don't speak for the whole church the way the General Assembly itself does.
No part of Redeemed Zoomer's church has any divine authority. That is just absurd. But we're going to come back to that qualification. Did you see Redeemed Zoomer starting to get nervous during this question? So he answered the first part with a yes. When a court of the PCUSA acts, it acts as the PCUSA, right? It acts as the church. Now, the moment Matthew Everhard brought up the PJC, which is essentially the highest court of the PCUSA, Redeemed Zoomer looks very concerned. You can see the color leaving Redeemed Zoomer's face as he takes this deep breath. I mean, it's very dramatic. And then he gives the qualification, oh, well, the PJC only has human authority. It doesn't have divine authority. We're going to come back to that, Redeemed Zoomer. Let's continue.
The interpretations of the PJC are the official interpretations of the PCUSA. Is that right?
Only by human authority, not by divine sanction.
That's a yes, but you notice that Redeemed Zoomer is qualifying all of his answers now because he is no longer comfortable.
In 1974, the PJC refused ordination to Walter Kenyon because he was against female elders and pastors. Isn't that so?
I'm not sure if it was 1974 but let's just say it was that, yes, and that is utterly irrelevant to what we're talking about today because that was in the Northern Church and we're talking about the Southern Church, the PCA split from.
But that was the formation of Ascension Presbytery, which is the first Northern Presbytery of the PCA, so it's incredibly relevant to me.
Let me just interpret that. Matthew Everhard asked about a case where a pastor was denied ordination in the PCUSA strictly because he was against female pastors. Okay, he didn't believe that elders and pastors should be female, which is also what the New Testament teaches. But with the PCUSA being a liberal activist group rather than a church, they stopped him from being ordained.
In 1981, the PJC found that the caseman, Mansfield caseman, denied the deity of Christ, and yet that was a permissible position within the mainline church. Is that right?
Yes, that's horrible, and I've talked about that many times.
Zoomer says it's horrible, and he's talked about it many times, but he's still tithing to the organization that did this. So far, we have that the PCUSA has refused to ordain pastors strictly because they believed that pastors should be men. But they've allowed pastors to be ordained when they denied the deity of Christ. They've also allowed pastors to be ordained when they denied the bodily resurrection of Jesus Christ. So these are core essential doctrines that are being denied, and the PCUSA is fine with it. These are doctrines that distort the very gospel of Jesus Christ. In fact, I'm going to let Matthew Everhard explain this. He did a second follow-up video where he gave a bunch of the facts for the things he said in that debate. So I want you all to know that this is real. This is what Redeemed Zoomer's church actually does. And it clearly departs from traditional Protestant beliefs, right? So this rules out the PCUSA as being a Protestant church by Redeemed Zoomer's own standards.
Now, these two cases, the Kenyon case and the Caseman case, are often talked about in tandem because what happened there is that the PCUSA said, the mainline church said that you cannot hold the biblical view of gender in ordination and be ordained in the PCUSA, the mainline church, but you can hold that Christ is not divine, that Christ did not raise from the dead and be ordained in the PCUSA. So that just shows a little bit of the moral and doctrinal insanity of the mainline church.
But I love the term moral and doctrinal insanity. And by the way, I really like Matthew Everhard. Obviously, he and I would disagree on some secondary doctrines, but I want to show that this is not about I'm a Baptist or I'm non-denominational and Zoomer's a Presbyterian and we have differences. It's not about that at all. Zoomer is outside the bounds of Protestant Christianity, in my opinion, and he's attacking people who are within it and saying they're not Protestant. So this has gone on long enough. It's become a mess. Gavin Ortlund, Matthew Everhard, Keith Foskey, many people have tried to correct Redeem Zoomer. He's not heard their correction, and that's why I'm here. I'm the next step in the process, Redeem Zoomer. So maybe you should accept the correction from more responsible and mature Christians who care about you, because they're trying to prevent you from falling into some serious errors here. And you're not paying attention and you are falling into them.
Do you tithe to the PCUSA?
Yes.
Do you give per capita and advise others to do the same?
What do you mean give per capita?
Are you not familiar with per capita?
I can't ask questions. The answer is yes, I tithe to the PCUSA, and any good member of the PCUSA should tithe to it.
Pastor Matt is talking about per capita because the PCUSA has a rule that when you tithe, a certain amount of the tithe from the churches goes up to the next level, to the presbyteries, and then eventually it goes all the way up to the General Assembly. So when you tithe to a PCUSA church, you're not just tithing to that individual church, you're tithing to the whole denomination. And your money is going up to the General Assembly, so it's helping to sue the conservative churches that are trying to leave the denomination, which is still happening. And we're told that Christians should not be suing each other in court, right? So this is anti-biblical. And then on top of that, the General Assembly is also supporting all the LGBTQIA plus propaganda that they're pushing out, which we're going to talk about now. So this is the conundrum, right? Should you give to the church or not? If you're not giving to your church, that's not good. If you are giving to your church, you're supporting all of the things that the PCUSA is doing financially, which is sin. We're going to get into that right now, but giving money to the PCUSA is definitely sin.
And you're an ordinand in the PCUSA, or you intend to be?
Not yet. I'm just starting seminary, but eventually.
If ordained, would you allow a minor to read the PCUSA's website unsupervised?
No. And I don't think you would either.
No, I wouldn't.
Zoomer's snarkiness and pride is out of control, okay? He comes back with, I don't think you would either. Yeah, but it's not his church, Zoomer. It's your church's website, and you're admitting that you wouldn't let a minor read it. You wouldn't let a minor read your own church website. Think about that for a minute. I mean, quit looking for the snappy comeback and face the reality.
If ordained, would you allow a minor to view the PCUSA's videos on queer sex?
Of course not. And I don't see how this is relevant to the topic we're discussing.
It's incredibly relevant because we're talking about wisdom as avoiding danger.
Yeah, Redeem Zoomer doesn't think that this is relevant to the topic that they were discussing, and I could see why. I wouldn't want to discuss this if I were Redeem Zoomer either. But why does your church have videos like that on their website? What in the world is going on?
Would you advise a minor to attend the PCUSA's LGBTQ plus camp?
I would advise them explicitly not to do that.
We have to talk about this real quick. So yes, the Presbyterian Church USA holds a children's camp for LGBTQIA plus children. Here's Matthew Everhard.
Basically what they're doing is they're recruiting for your kids to come to a camp, and they're going to hear all of this sort of indoctrination related to transgenderism and homosexuality and queerism and polyamory and so forth. I would be terrified to let my kids go to a camp like this, much less even watch the introductory video for it.
If you are eventually ordained in the PCUSA, would you allow your youth group to watch Unbound videos?
No, that's the most heretical garbage I've ever seen. And this is just like periods in the early church where, despite being under the same organizational umbrella, bishops were calling each other heretics and going to war with each other. This is not...
Mr. Moderator?
I'm done.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Again, Zoomer is just so smug, and I don't see anything really Christian about Zoomer. It's very hard to find. But that aside, Matthew Everhard asked Redeem Zoomer if he would let children watch the Unbound series. Now, Unbound is a ministry under the umbrella of the PCUSA, and it is a queer ministry, if there even is such a thing as a queer ministry, but that's what they're calling it. I'm gonna have Pastor Everhard explain this one again as well, because I think he just did a great job in exposing the problems with the PCUSA, and I don't understand how Zoomer can tell people to come join this denomination and take it back over for the conservatives. I don't think he even has a plan to do it. I've read the Reconquista stuff and I don't see a plan there. It seems like a bunch of assumptions. All these conservatives are gonna go and then that's gonna somehow just automatically change things. Like, how are you going to take it back over? I don't see any strategy. But again, we would all be on Zoomer's side with that if he wasn't attacking everyone else and telling them to come join his heretical church. Or one of the other heretical churches like the United Methodists or the liberal versions of Lutheranism. I mean, the reason that the mainline churches can be in communion is because they don't care about doctrinal purity, they care about social justice. And when do you see the mainline churches out preaching the gospel anywhere? They just don't even do it. Anyway, back to Matthew Everhard.
You're going to be shocked at some of the videos that they have. And again, I just want to remind you that this is actually a ministry under the PCUSA right here. Okay. So this is not some fringe group or some tangentially related organization. This is the PCUSA itself. And when we look at their videos, we're going to see a series of videos called The Queering of Job. We saw that earlier as a blog post. Okay. We have all sorts of videos about changing the narrative about LGBTQIA. This one right here, you can watch a video about queering the family. Okay, so how to queer up your family. Here's something on Black Lives Matter. Here's something on Black Lives Matter 2. Environmental justice, academia and racism. Reproductive justice, we know what that means. Do we know what reproductive justice is? That's abortion. And the PCUSA is an ardent, aggressive advocate for abortion. So do you want your tithe dollars going to that? I don't. Divinely Queer, a video on immigration. One of the things that I'm arguing in my debate with Redeem Zoomer is that it's indistinguishable to try to discern the difference between the PCUSA's official positions on social justice and the exact planks of the platform of the Democratic Party. In fact, I can't think. I'm going to ask Redeem Zoomer this. Is there anything that is distinguishable between the PCUSA's official policies on social justice and that of the Democratic Party? I would answer no, that's not the case. I don't find anything that's different there.
So in other words, Redeem Zoomer's amazing traditional mainline Protestant church with all the bells and whistles is basically like if the Democrat Party started a church. That's basically what's left of the PCUSA. And they put that under the umbrella of Presbyterianism. Now, are some of the churches better than others? Yeah, of course, right? Obviously, there's a tier list of how bad these places are, but they're not good. You should not be in fellowship or communion with people who believe this, period. And if the leadership believes it, then the church is gone. If a few of the people in the congregation believe something crazy, that's completely different than if the people running the denomination are adamantly progressive and trying to subvert Christianity and doing a great job of it, by the way, within that organization. They're antichrist, okay? That's what I'm trying to say here. It is shocking to me that a person who lives in this glass house is lobbing rocks in every direction at everyone else.
Are the PCUSA's General Assembly and official committees an LGBTQ plus activist organization?
I would say so.
Redeem Zoomer just admitted that the General Assembly of his own church is an LGBT activist organization. Earlier, he said this.
The General Assembly itself has divine authority, and the judicial courts only have human authority. So the judicial courts don't speak for the whole church the way the General Assembly itself does.
So he just said the General Assembly has divine authority, but it is also an LGBTQ activist group. So It's painful, guys. I don't know how Redeemed Zoomer can possibly believe the words he's saying. I mean, they're entirely contradictory. One statement cancels out the next one.
Do you admit that the PCA, my denomination, has the 3 marks of a true church: preaching, the sacraments, and discipline?
Yes, of course the PCA is a true church.
I left that in just to say, look, I go to a Baptist church, which is not a part of a larger denomination, so technically I'm a non-denominational Baptist. But for the record, I have friends in different denominations, okay? And I have friends who are elders in the Presbyterian church. I'm not against Presbyterians, and if you are a Presbyterian, I think the PCA is a good option. There are other conservative Presbyterian churches that aren't related to the PCA, but I certainly would avoid the PCUSA at all cost if I were a Presbyterian. I just want people to have a good Bible-believing church where they can get together with other believers, they can hear the word preached correctly, they can receive baptism and communion, and they can worship God together in spirit and in truth. And I think that's what most Christians are out there looking for. And I would certainly not consider a PCUSA church at any point because of the things that you would be supporting, which are sin. In fact, let's go to scripture really quick. 2 John chapter 1, starting at verse 9 says, "Anyone who goes too far and does not abide in the teaching of Christ does not have God. The one who abides in the teaching, he has both the Father and the Son. If anyone comes to you and does not bring this teaching, do not receive him into your house, and do not give him a greeting, for the one who gives him a greeting participates in his evil deeds." So that's how serious this is, right? We're not even to give a greeting to people who come and bring a different gospel. And yet, some of the pastors in Redeemed Zoomer's church, the PCUSA, are teaching against the bodily resurrection of Christ. They're teaching against the divinity of Christ. And they're teaching that homosexuality and other things are not a sin. So it is sin to give those people a greeting. What then is it to sit under their teaching in a church? Obviously, it is sin. What then is it to be in fellowship with them? Christian fellowship. Obviously, again, it is sin. How will the people at Redeemed Zoomer's presbyteries even speak to one another if they're not allowed to give each other a greeting? Right? Is this a problem for the synods and the General Assembly in Redeemed Zoomer's church? Well, not really, because the liberals are in complete control of it. They don't have to ordain conservative pastors, and they're probably not going to ordain Zoomer. Then again, he's pretty far to the left of where I'm at, so maybe they'll put up with him. But as long as he's saying he's going to take over the denomination, I don't think they're going to let him do it. But yeah, I mean, Galatians 1 verses 8 and 9 tell us very clearly that if anybody brings a different gospel, he is to be accursed. So obviously, people who don't believe that Jesus is divine, don't believe that he was resurrected, they have a different gospel.
Mansfield Caseman denied the deity of Christ, and yet that was a permissible position within the mainline church. Is that right?
Yes, that's horrible, and I've talked about that many times.
Paul tells us not to even eat with a so-called brother who is clearly in sin, living in sin. And these churches are participating in gay marriages. Oh, Redeemed Zoomer said that Calvin would excommunicate the non-denominationals. Well, John Calvin oversaw the execution of 2 men for being homosexuals. Let me repeat, he oversaw their executions. So you can't read these historical figures outside of their historical context, which is what Zoomer does. But imagine John Calvin and the other reformers coming to Redeemed Zoomer's church, where it's run by women and LGBT people.
How many PCUSA Presbyterian meetings have you personally been to?
1.
Synod meetings?
0.
General Assembly meetings?
0. But in America, evangelical Protestantism has overtaken mainline Protestantism. And that's what I'm trying to fix. The reason that happened is because liberal Marxists intentionally hijacked the mainline Protestant churches. You can read about this.
Yes, Zoomer, but they did. They took over the churches, okay? So let us know when you're able to come up with a strategy to take them back, because you saying you're going to do it and having all these people try to leave their evangelical churches when you don't even really seem to have a clear strategy, that's not working. You're only going to end up adding to the power of the liberals who are in charge of the PCUSA. And when Redeemed Zoomer is pressed on this, he blames the conservatives for leaving.
American history has been a history of struggle between the established mainline Protestant churches, your Episcopalians, Presbyterians, and these revivalist offshoots that really just hate all institutional Christianity.
We don't hate all institutional Christianity. We recognize that the reason those churches were taken over was because of their governance system. So those people got in charge of the General Assembly, and they will never let the conservatives take it back. And people at the church level are like, hey, why can't we make our own decisions? Why do we have to rely on the presbytery and the General Assembly and the Synod? Why can't the churches make decisions for themselves? Who's going to be their pastor? What is going to be preached? What they believe doctrinally? Why can't the churches make their own mind up? It doesn't make any sense. Redeemed Zoomer is pushing for a system where the liberals will be able to take it over and gain power. All you have to do to see that that will happen is look at what has already happened. Okay? That's historically what has gone on. And you can blame the conservatives for leaving, but that was decades ago. And whatever happened, happened. We're now in 2025. We're not in 1970 anymore.
What are your main gripes with non-denominational churches specifically? Because here's what I would say in response. I have some close friends that are non-denominational. They say they see not, I don't mean you as in like you in particular, but Presbyterian, all these high reform people, it's becoming woke. You have female pastors, all this.
Yeah, because the non-denominationals all ran away. That's
right.
Thank goodness Iron Inquisitor actually pushed back and stuck up for the non-denominational Christians. He could have just allowed Redeemed Zoomer to start this whole Protestant beef without pushing back on him because, you know, it's not really his place to do that. And he did it anyway, so I have to give him some credit. It's pretty bad when I have to agree with the Catholic apologist and side against the supposed Protestant apologist, which Redeemed Zoomer should not be. No one wants you to be a Protestant apologist, Redeemed Zoomer. You do not represent any conservative Protestant anywhere.
Well, here's the thing. And then in the non-denominational church, a lot of pockets, they're very conservative. They're converting like thousands of people and giving their lives to Christ. So how could you say that's worse when the alternative is a bunch of like female pastors and rainbows and stuff?
That's a great place to end. Guys, this is insanity, okay? Clearly, the Presbyterian Church USA has fallen off into apostasy. It is not a true church any longer. And if Redeemed Zoomer would like to go and make it a church and then come back and tell us all about his progress, that'd be fantastic. If he wants to involve the people who are in that denomination and even maybe the other mainline denominations and get them all together for this thing and really try to take back over the mainline and make it make sense again, that would be great. But stop attacking real churches. Stop attacking faithful, Bible-believing Christians. Obviously, guys like Keith Foskey, Matt Everhard, Gavin Ortlund have tried to talk to Redeemed Zoomer. They're all a little confused about where he's coming from as well. And I think we all agree that he's in major error. He's unloving toward other believers. That's a big deal. That speaks volumes about whether Redeemed Zoomer is actually saved or not, in my opinion. Because the one thing that we know you will have if you're saved is love for the brethren. John is very explicit about that in the book of 1 John. Redeemed Zoomer must be stopped. It's as I said, okay? That's my main takeaway from studying Redeemed Zoomer and looking into his channel, and I just wanted to bring you guys the most concise version of this I can give. I'm so sorry that I can't wrap it up into a really neat package, but there's a lot going on here. So I will be back with more soon, whether it's on this topic or a different topic within theology and the Christian community. I will be back very soon, Lord willing. I thank you guys very much for stopping back to the channel. It's greatly appreciated. If you can drop a like on the video, that actually is very helpful. Comments are helpful as well. Also, pray for Redeemed Zoomer. I mean, he is a very young guy. I know I've gone kind of hard on this topic, but that's because he has been stubbornly refusing correction. And it's apparent to me that the kid gloves have to come off. But we definitely want to keep him in prayer. Pray for the people who are following him as well. God bless you all. Grace and peace in the name of our Lord, Jesus Christ.